Been in business for over a year, like you said, she doesn't feel like she's worked a single day. How pleasant is it to hear that from a person called Nadia? Welcome to the session, Nadia. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure to have you on board and really excited by your energy already. And so let's dive straight into it, my dear. Tell us a bit about your service, Nadia, and the kind of business you have.
So, I run a counseling business or
Hmm.
therapist. People call it two different things. But my business essentially provides support for individuals, young people as young as the age of 11, and couples as well. So, support with their mental health, relationships, all sorts of things that surround areas of self-development. So, yeah, essentially a therapy business.
Wonderful, love it. Now, it's just, I've spoken to many therapists in the past, but when I spoke to you, there's a massive bit of inspiration I've got chilling down my spine. And that's particularly because you said one thing, and you said that running your business is amazing for you because you feel like you're fulfilling your purpose. And no doubt that's driving you, one of the things that driving your success right now. Can you tell us a bit more about why it's so important that other business owners do something, also at least touches on fulfilling their purpose? Why is that so important in business?
I think it's so important because if you don't feel like you're getting the most out of your business or you're making the impact that perhaps you set out to make, sometimes it can just feel like a chore, a burden.
Mm,
I often speak to people and see people who, even if they're not in their own business, they might be working for people, working for a company or something like that. And there's this like low level energy that sometimes I get where they just feel like they're dragging their feet. Oh, I'm just working to pay bills. There's not any passion, there's no motivation, there's no drive to want
mm,
for themselves. So I think it's so important, especially when it is in business, because I mean, you are your own product. You kind of sell yourself when you go around. If you have that fulfillment, you have that drive, that passion, that energy, you're not going to feel like you're working, A, and B, you're going to be able to really like push that into being successful, and focusing on kind of what your goals are, what your aims are, and how much you want to get out of your business. And that's really important to me, to be fair.
mm. To really create that energy and that kind of um, push, like you say, to be successful. So you trained to be a counselor and the professional that you are, and now you're running your own business in that specific area. Before that, you said you had a degree in arts, in the arts area. So it's quite a big jump from being in one kind of industry to another. I mean, many of business owners listening here today may be considering a huge leap, maybe completely pivoting their business or going from a career to a business. I mean, what advice or guidance would you give to someone who wants to go from A to B, which is a complete overhaul?
Yeah, so disclaimer, I didn't finish uni. So I went for the year and was doing an art related course and didn't continue. I was always really passionate about art. I still am, and I use like creative interventions now when working with young people in particular. But I would say that for me, the best bit of advice that I could give is when you take the leap, when you kind of trust that, okay, this is what I want to do, just know within yourself that you have a choice in that. I think
Mm,
at the beginning, I was really set out on everything working and everything going perfectly. And then going to university and it not going that way catapulted me into a whole different direction. So, working in property for 7.5 years, I didn't ever think I'd do.
mm,
Um, and then due to my own life experiences, then taking a complete turn and going into training to be a counselor, which is what I do now. I've always trusted the process. And I know that might sound so cliche, but I promise you, I never forget my tutor when I got to like the third year of my training. When we came in the first day, he was like, look, if you're not prepared to trust the process, it's probably best that you don't do this. That you just move on. You kind of don't.
What is this process you're referring to? Trust the process of.
Yeah, trust the process of whatever you're going to step into, the unknown, the
Oh,
not
right, okay.
what's going to, yeah. So not knowing what's going to happen next, not knowing if you're even going to finish the course, not knowing if I didn't think I would be a business owner as quickly as I was, but I felt confident enough to do that, to step out. So yeah, I think going for the leap, it really is just trust the process. Like, know that if this is deep down what you want to do, even if it doesn't go to plan or there's, you know, curveballs along the way, keep going. Just keep going with it. If it's your passion and it's what you feel, it will work out. And it's probably people will be rolling their eyes like, yeah, trust the process. But genuinely, I think that's why I feel I've got to the point I've got to already, and have reached so many milestones that I didn't even set for myself, because I've just trusted
Amazing.
and going for it.
And that is so refreshing to hear once again, because as a coach, one thing I believe in is setting a goal and having a plan. However, sometimes having too rigid a plan can hold you back because you're not trusting the process and just being creative and taking and saying yes to the weird and wonderful opportunities that may come across in your life, right? Now, many business owners are going to get too bogged down and say, first I'm going to do A, then B, then C, then D. But often there's a billion things happening in the planet all at once, and often you can't do A, then B. You have to go from A to M, and it's half the stuff you thought you were going to do. So talk to us a bit about your goals and your achievements and your plans. How do you go about kind of planning or preparing for growth?
So it's funny you say this, because I changed the language on it. So I don't actually say goals. I use the word hopes. Um,
Okay.
and just for me, it resonates in a different way, just because I think in my life, when I've had goals, then it's got a certain level of pressure attached to it. Whereas
Hmm.
if I have hopes, then these can go on for as long or as short as they need to. And I know
Yeah.
that they're in the background and there's still something I can achieve, but they're not with a time frame or a deadline or anything like that. They're just there for me. So I'll just make that as sort of disclaimer. I would say in terms of setting things out, I mean, when I started my business, you know, you do a business plan and things like that, which I did do. But what I also added in were just things around that I just wanted to do. So for example, I wanted to be able to support, an older client group at some point in my journey. I didn't know when that was, I didn't know how that was going to be, but I knew in my mind 60 plus, I want to at some point, at some stage,
Mm.
just scratch the surface, supporting older clients, the older generation. So just kind of using that one as an example, that is something that I did do, but didn't kind of chase doing it. It sort of came to me, an opportunity came to me, and I thought, oh, this is going to be supporting old elders. So it was 60 plus victims of crime. And I
Okay.
supported them using CBT. So they had either, you know, unfortunately suffered, you know, like burglary or an attack, or been mugged on the street. Like some of them had gone through really, really traumatic things, but supporting them for a point really, really was good. And I think I set that out initially as one of my hopes, but not as a set goal. So I think when you're approaching that, just think about things, set realistic. If you're going to be a goal setter, just set
Yeah.
realistic goals for yourself. Don't try to over exceed or overextend. Just think about, what do I want to do? What would I like to do? Set that and see what happens. Work towards it, but don't push yourself.
Amazing. Sounds quite encouraging and more less daunting when hearing it from that perspective. Now we are coming up to a holiday season, and plenty of people are going to be spoiling themselves, eating fancy food, drinks, going to nice places, meeting family and friends. But also, it's a great time to switch the TV off, um, exist a bit of solitude and reflect. Now, with your background in helping people reflect, I mean, what sort of tips or advice would you give to people as you approach the end of the year, looking forward to maybe having a cracking start to 2024? What would you advise or point people in the direction of reflecting and learning from themselves?
Yeah, I've been talking about this a lot the last couple of weeks, as
Okay.
we get closer to the year. So it is a reflective time. But the key thing that my clients are sick of hearing from me is, if you are reflecting, always start with the things you have achieved and the things you have done, rather than the things you haven't done. We tend
Mm.
to focus on the things that we maybe wanted to do in January, and then we've got to December and we still haven't done. And it could be something like, oh, redecorate your house, for example. It could be something like that. But actually reflect on the things you have done, because within that, you're always going to be able to find moments and pockets of achievement, or maybe some of these hopes that we're talking about, the goals that you've met, you're gonna find moments which have been nice. You might have been able to meet up with friends you haven't seen in years. Like it
mm,
doesn't matter what it is. It's not about me, saying what matters most to people. But I think naturally as humans, we can be our own worst critics. So we immediately go to oh, I didn't do this year. 2024, I'm starting again. I'm new year, new me. And it's like, no. What did you do this year? Because there will be
mm.
something. So always reflect. It's great. It's great to have reflection, but focus on what you have done rather than what you haven't.
Brilliant. So focus on the positives and not on the negatives. There's maybe more positives than you actually realize life has helped throw out right at you. Now, you've gathered really good growth over the last year. No doubt you're going to be going on to bigger stages over the coming years. But talk to us about, more specifically, the challenges you feel you may face as an entrepreneur over the coming, let's just say, 12 months. Now, yes, there's a notion that the economy isn't doing well and the political situation is unstable. Quite frankly, us as the SME community, we can't really do much about that.
Yeah.
All we can do is take responsibility for what's in front of us.
Mhm.
Bearing that in mind, what would you say are the top three challenges that you think you may face over the coming year?
That's a good one. Top three challenges. Oh, the first one I'm going to say is, and maybe this relates a bit more to me than it does to my business, but I would say carving out time for me to recharge.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that's probably top, because I really pushed myself this year. I'm a very busy person, and typically business owners are, but it's so important to recharge and self-care. And like, I've realized I cannot support other people if I'm not on form myself.
Mm,
So I've really tried my hardest this year, especially to be really intentional about time off. It doesn't
brilliant.
mean that I have to fly out anywhere, but just have a break, basically.
Yeah.
So that I would say top three challenge, because when you work for yourself, you are the money essentially. So if you don't work, you don't get paid. But really trying to kind of get out of that mindset and go, you also need to recharge. So I'd say
Mm,
that's number one. I would say number two is just maintaining. And I would say by that, I mean that even though growth is on the horizon for me, I think maintenance first is more important. So, things like client retention, being able to know when it's time for a client to end,
mm,
when it's time to take on new clients or to not, um, kind of trying to maintain that, because at the moment I am at capacity.
mm,
Then sometimes a client comes to you and you almost feel like, oh, is there room? Like, can I fit them in somewhere? And I think it's about knowing this is enough to maintain.
mm,
Again, you're a business owner, you are the money. So you might be a bit attracted to, oh, let's take on that extra client, we can fit it in. But it's like, no, just maintain where you're at, what you have, and then there will be room to take on more or less, and kind of just manage your time. So I would say maintaining.
mhm.
And the third one, this is such a good question, Maybe because I'm always trying to focus on the positives. I'm never thinking about the negatives. But my third challenge, I would say for the next year, is knowing what direction I want to go in.
Yeah.
Um, this year is the first year that I've not studied. So even after qualifying, you do like a year of training. So essentially 3.5 years, including my year of training. This is the first year that I've not done any studying, which is unusual for me, because I think along the way, I studied 5 years it took for me to train to become qualified as a therapist. So to have done such intense studying and done CPD on the side, additional courses, like further things to top me up. This year I was like, no, give your brain a break, just see the clients and kind of treat that as my learning, being
Yeah.
in the room and getting to know different clients. So I think why I say that might be a challenge is because there's so much CPD out there. There's so many further further development, extra learning to do.
Mm.
But I don't want to just do that for the sake of it now. I'm at the
It's got
stage
to
in
be
my
focused, hasn't it? It's got to be serving a purpose.
exactly. So having said that, I have booked onto a course to do in February. Um,
Okay.
but I mean, I spoke to them and I've paid the deposit to kind of go on it, but there is room to sort of opt out.
Mm.
But that's channeling working more closely with couples and relational, because at the moment I am more heavily with individuals.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would say that's a challenge, is knowing where do I want to go with this? What do I want to do next?
Awesome, awesome. Well, it is coming up to the festive seasons. It could be something for you to think about while you're watching Home Alone 1 or 2, because 2 is more boring. And thinking about, right, what can be your goal for the next year and what bit of learning do you need to do if you're going to do some learning? Well, Nadia, it's been amazing speaking to you. Thank you very much for sharing some great wisdom here today. I'm pretty sure the business community listening has taken up a couple of nuggets that's going to really be applicable to them. So thank you very much for your time and hopefully paths cross once again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.